improvement report? No. So what tells us whether or not we've had measurable improvement? We get that from data. And again, another word about data before we move on. As I've already said, since Tracy took over, we know that we have to be much more data-driven. That's why we have so many pilot programs. That's why we now work on things to work bugs out. There's no guesswork or hunches here, only decisions based on what has been shown to work. And that is helping to drive the results we're getting as a company. But you can do the same thing within your company. So, do you rely on data, or are you trying to guess, operating on hunches? It seems pretty obvious, but the concept of actually using data rather than intuition, believe it or not, is relatively new. How many of you saw the movie Moneyball? Oh, wow. Not a lot of baseball fans here. All right. Or Brad Pitt fans? Any Brad Pitt fans? He was available then. If you saw the movie Moneyball, and it's actually a great book as well, let me just quickly fill you in. Moneyball is a book and a movie based on the true story of the Oakland Athletics baseball team and its general manager, Billy Beane. Its focus is the team's analytical, evidence-based, data-based approach to assembling a competitive baseball team, despite Oakland's disadvantaged revenue situation. So let's take a look.
I like Geronimo.
Julie, it's not coming through. Wait. Honey, can you just hold this for me? Hold this for me. It's coming through.
You guys are full of it. Artie's right. This guy's got an attitude. An attitude is good. I mean, it's the kind of guy who walks into a room who's already ready to feel good.
He's not passing the training test. He's got the looks. He's ready to play the part. He just needs to get some money back.
I'm just saying, his girlfriend is a six at best. We're trying to
Ben, I believe was a suggestion.
I suggest talking. Talking, la 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 la, like this is business as usual. It's not.
We're trying to solve the problem.
Not like this, you're not even looking at the problem.
Where's the problem?
Okay, good. What's the problem?
Look, Tony, we all understand what the problem is. We have to
Okay,
replace it.
good. What's the problem?
The problem is we have to replace 3 key players in our
No.
lineup.
What's the problem?
Same as it's ever been. We've got to replace these guys with what we have existed.
No, what's the problem, Derek?
We need 38 home runs, 120 RBIs,
the attitude for the doubles or
The problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. It's an unfair game. And now we've been gutted, organ donors for the rich, Boston's taking our kidneys, Yankees taking our heart, and you guys are sitting around talking the same old good body nonsense like we're selling jeans, like we're looking for Fabio. We've got to think differently. We are the last dog at the bowl. You see what happens to the runt of the litter? He dies.
Clearly, that's a very touching story, and I think we're all very much aware of what we're facing here. You have a lot of experience and wisdom in this room. Now, you need to have a little bit of faith and let us do the job of replacing Gianni.
Is there another first baseman like Gianni?
No, not really. No.
And if there was, could we afford it?
No.
Then what are you talking about, man? If we try to play like the Yankees in here, we will lose to the Yankees out there.
Well, that sounds like fortune cookie wizard with me, Billy.
No, that's just logic.
Who's Fabio?
Sometimes we wish we had one. Billy, our scouts are going to find players, our player development's going to develop them, we're going to teach them how to play Oakland A baseball. Billy, we've been doing this for a long time. Why don't you just let us be responsible for replacing Gianni with who we know that can play?
So, up until 2002, that is how baseball teams were assembled. By putting a bunch of people around, a bunch of experts around the table and talking about things like the size of their jaw, what their girlfriend looked like. In other words, very subjective things, right? Here's what happened when Brad Pitt, Billy Bean, hires an economist who studies data and crunches numbers to hire players who have potential but are not yet proven. And little tip-off, that year, the Oakland A's went from last place to first and on to the playoffs. Let's take a look.
So using this equation you have left right here, I'm projecting that we need to win at least 99 games in order to make this postseason. We need to score at least 814 runs in order to win those games and allow no more than 645 runs.
What's this?
This is the code that I've written for our year-to-year projections. This is building in all the intelligence that we have to project players. Okay? It's about getting things down to one number. Using stats the way we read them, we'll find value in players that nobody else can see. People are overlooked for a variety of biased reasons and perceived flaws. Age, appearance, personality. Bill James and mathematics cut straight through that. Billy, of the 20,000 notable players for us to consider, I believe that there is a championship team of 25 people that we can afford. Because everyone else is baseball undervalues them. Like an island of misfit toys. Billy, this is Chad Bradford. He's a relief pitcher. He's one of the most undervalued players in baseball. His defect is that he throws hard. Nobody in the big leagues cares about it. Because he looks like it. This guy could be not just the best pitcher in our bullpen, but one of the most effective relief pitchers in all baseball. This guy should cost $2 million a year. We can get him for $237,000.
Because when you talk about your consultants like this, oh, I just recruited somebody. She's gonna be so good. She's a real go-getter. How do you know? Here's the fact. Nobody is good until they are. That's it. That's what you sound like. The guys, the scouts sitting around the table talking about things and not looking at what your consultants are showing you. Unfortunately, one of the slides was misplaced, so I have to go back just a little bit, which I can't do. Oh, there we go. You have to stop listening to what your consultants are saying and start looking at what your consultants are showing you. When somebody says to you, I want to be a director, that doesn't mean you jump to work with them. Are they showing you they want to be a director? That's what we're going to talk about. Because when you listen to what your consultants are telling you and you don't look at what they're showing you, you spin your wheels. You get frustrated. And you say, nobody on my team is any good. But maybe, just maybe, you have an island of misfit toys. Just maybe. Let's take a look. By the way, we are so lucky because we don't have to hire an economist and we don't have to write a program to get the information that I'm going to share with you. It's already there. It's already there. So let's take a look at this further. I'm going to show you a consultant. And here's a consultant, an actual consultant from my team, obviously October of 2013. And this is no report that you don't have access to. Anyone know what report this is? This is just Consultant Connection. That's it, okay? That's all it is. Nothing, there's no smoke or mirrors here. How many of you would look at this person and say, you know, all right, I'm glad she's on my team, but she's nothing special. Here's what I looked at. She's selling, but not a lot. She has some recruits, but nobody's doing anything great. Could I actually turn this consultant into a more productive one? So here's the backstory of this consultant. In October of 2013, when this was, she was on the personal team of one of my directors. At the very beginning, January 1st of 2014, her director left the business. And that director's entire personal team rolled up to my personal team, including this consultant. So I reached out to everyone to welcome them, and she called me back. So I asked her if she wanted to promote to director, and she said yes. And then I asked her if she was willing to work for it, and she said yes. So I started coaching her. And I asked her if she knew what is the number one thing you need to do more of if you want to be a director? And she said, recruit. And I said, no. The number one thing you need to do more of is shows. I told her that recruits would come with the shows and some training. But without the shows, she would have a hard time finding recruits, and she would have a hard time hitting the $5,000 required to promote to director. And I also told her that I don't want you to just promote to director. I want you to stay a director, maintain your directorship. And that meant hitting $5,000 in sales every single month. And again, I asked her, are you willing to try to work for this? And she said yes. So we talked about how to get more bookings. We had an interesting conversation at breakfast this morning. And one of the questions that came up was, okay, so I have people who want to, they say they want to do more, and then no more shows come and materialize. And the first question I asked was, do they know who to call? Not who they want to call, but who they should call. There's a difference. Do they know what to say? Exactly word for word what to say. Because if they don't, then it's a matter of skill. If they do know and they still don't do it, then it's a matter of will. But before you write somebody off as not having will, it's our job to make sure that they have the skill. So I talked with this consultant about bookings. We talked about bookings in two ways, from scratch and bookings from shows. Together, we brainstormed a list of people that she could call. I took out a piece of paper. I live in Dallas. She lives somewhere in Massachusetts. So we did this on the phone. She took out a piece of paper and a pen. I took out a piece of paper and a pen. And together, we created her list of names to call. I prompted her to look for names in different areas. I explained to her that we all want to work with people we know. But the big problem with that is that the people we know well all know each other well. And you never break out of your circle. And I told her that the best thing she could do was call people that would be a little uncomfortable to call because she didn't know them that well, but they know people she doesn't know. And that would help break her out of the circle she was in. So together we brainstormed this list of people, and then we organized exact work. So was one person on the list, and she said, I've never really gotten the guts to ask my mother-in-law. I said, well, tell me something about your mother-in-law. She said, well, she works. I mean, obviously her kids are grown and gone, and I said, does she like to cook? She said, I don't know if she likes to cook, but she loves to entertain. I said, okay, great. So what if you called her and said, I said, what's her name? Her name is Lucy. I said, what if you said Lucy? You know, I was thinking, when I went to a meeting the other night at Pampered Chef, and I learned this fabulous. I could do that. Because in call after call, we tackled different topics. We talked about her show average. We talked about closing shows in a timely manner. We talked about selling techniques. And of course, we talked about recruiting. And 1 year from October 2013, but only 9 months after she started working directly with me, whoops, oh, sorry, okay. This is this same exact consultant in October of 2014.
Wow.
So you tell me, can we drive results?
Sure can.
What do you think?
Absolutely.
All right? I know what you're thinking. This is just an isolated incident. Results not typical. Let's look at another example. Here is a consultant who clearly is selling consistently and who's getting bookings. So why not leave well enough alone, right? Go work on somebody else who's not doing anything. Well, here's how I look at this consultant. If she's willing to make this kind of consistent effort, I think she deserves better results. So I asked her this question. What if you continue to do the same number of shows every month, but you got paid more? Would that be appealing? Of course, she said yes. So I told her, do you know how much money you made, or I should say I asked her, do you know how much money you made on average every time you go out and do a show? In other words, I did not ask her what her show average is. I asked her, how much do you make when you go out and do a show? And she said, I don't know. And I told her, you earn an average of $147.70 every time you go out and do a show. And then I told her this, I believe you could earn more. So I asked her if she wanted to learn how. She said yes. So we talked about the fact that show averages are made up of 2 elements: per person spending and the number of orders. I told her that if we can affect either one of these or both of these elements, her show average would go up and she would earn more. So I did the math and I determined in her case, her per person spending was actually pretty good. It was like in the high 70s. So, you know, it was good. But there was a glaring problem, and that was the number of orders. So I asked her if she knew what her average cooking show attendance was in the second half of 2014, which is exactly what we have portrayed there. She kind of guessed, and then I was, you know, pretty low, and we worked on that. And here's what happened, and I'm only comparing, you know, exact time frames, because I think that's really important. You don't compare the second half of the year to the first half of the year, because we all know that the fourth quarter is off the charts in comparison to other quarters. So I compared like time frames. 1 year later, this was her show average. So I told her that she had just given herself a raise, and she was now earning $212.49 on average every time she went out and did a show. She gave herself a pay raise of 43%. She was pretty impressed. So here's another consultant on my team. I'll give you a minute to take a look at that. So, you look at that and you're like, come on, Carol, what's the problem, right? This consultant is selling, she's getting bookings. Well, again, here's the backstory. This consultant had a life situation come up, and she told me that she was going to have to start looking for a real job if she didn't start making more money. So, I dove into her numbers and I discovered that her average number of orders per cooking show was 9.5, as you can see. Now, if we subtract out that 2 to 3 on average that are outside orders, that means that her average attendance at her cooking shows was around 7. So I asked her if she thought that doubling that number would make a difference. Of course, she said yes. Well, it turns out that this consultant was not sending out any kind of invitation in the mail. If her host wanted to just Facebook everybody, she said, okay, fine. If they just wanted to text everybody, she says, okay, fine. I told her that not only did I want her to have every host invite everyone in 3 different ways, because different people respond to different methods. We all know some people who never check their email. We all know other people, my son, who never replies to texts. We all know some people who never listen to voicemails. So why are you using just one method? But I told her that one of the 3 methods should be snail mail. And she went, oh, nobody uses snail mail anymore. And I said, perfect. That's exactly why you want to use it. Because every invitation will stand out. And I encouraged her to use the mini catalog as her invitation. She fought me tooth and nail. And I finally said to her, fine. Do you want to go out and look for a real job? She said, I said, listen, do yourself a favor. Commit to doing this for 3 months. 3 months, that's all. See what kind of results you get. And then, after 3 months, if you're not happy with the result, go back to doing whatever you're doing. But just try it my way for 3. 1 month later. 1 month later. By the way, that was in the beginning of 2015. She didn't go get a real job. So, if you're not working on attendance with your teens, you're missing the fix that ails most of your teens. It is the biggest thing you need to work on. When you fix attendance, it obviously increases sales. It increases incomes. It increases bookings. And it increases recruiting. And that's just the tangible. It also lends an intangible sense of success and satisfaction with what you're doing. We all know that when we come home from a show that had 3 people at it, we have a completely different attitude than when we come home from a show that had 23 people at it. Am I wrong? And that feeling of success, remember what I talked about last night about cleaning my pantry and then going on to clean my closets? Action begets action, and success begets success. So when people start feeling more successful, they are more successful. So, let me ask you again. Can we drive results? Let me tell you that if you have not been coaching up to now, and I know a lot of you haven't been because you are scared. I want you to change the way you think about coaching. If you think of coaching as criticizing, you will be paralyzed to take action. But if you think of coaching as teaching, you can start driving results. You are not criticizing, you're teaching. Do you understand the difference? How many of you thought of getting on the phone and coaching means that you had to criticize? I think a lot of people think that. And when you start thinking of teaching, it really frees you up to take action. So, the question I know you now have in the back of your heads is this. You can picture working with your team like this when you have 5 or 6 people. But now that you have 50 people on your team, you're like, no, I can't do this. I don't have time. The answer to that is simple. You don't work with everyone. Oh, but Carol, that's not fair. It's not a matter of fair, it's a matter of smart. This is a business. It's not a sorority. If you really think of your time as valuable as money, then you will decide carefully how to invest your time. Just as you would carefully invest your money. By the way, just in case you're still grappling with this not work with everyone thing, what do you think the home office is doing with you? What do you think LEAD is and LEAD Plus? It's called selective coaching. And that's what the home office is modeling. Oh. So, is everyone in the field going to get the same kind of attention you're getting from LEAD and LEAD Plus? No! It's not only okay to work with select consultants, it's just smart. So how do you decide who to work with and who not to work with? Here's my basic rule of thumb. All new consultants in their first 90 days get equal treatment. Remember, you don't know who's good until they are. Give them a chance to be good. As their first 90 days end, that is a critical touch point. I mean critical touch point that you should be making with your consultants and talking to them about their next goals. It's perfect time to take their temperature of their coachability. And here are some things to consider. Are they doing the number of shows that they told you they wanted to be doing? Is their show average improving? What is their average attendance? Has their why changed? I have to tell you, my why changed after 3 months in the business. It absolutely changed. And so you need to know, has their why changed? Are they working towards directorship? Are they willing to work to improve any or all of the above? The answers to these questions will give you a really good idea of who you should be working with beyond those first 90 days. As far as existing members of your team, since obviously you already have people that are beyond 90 days, take a look at Consultant Connection and see who has a show average that needs improving, has a recruit or two, maybe not doing anything, but they have a recruit or two, is working consistently, even if not at a high level. Remember my first consultant, $600 a month, but it was pretty consistent. That's what I zoomed in on. As your team grows, you'll learn who deserves your time, and you'll learn how to invest your time wisely. So, in my situation, I have 57 directors just in my first, second, and third gen, and over 200 people on my personal team, in the thousands of my whole organization. Clearly, I cannot work with everyone. So I have monthly coaching calls with all my first gen directors who will participate. Yes, I have some who will not.